Welcome to today's explainer. Let's just dive right in. Picture this. You're an average, happy stickman out doing your grocery shopping. You've got some cash in your pocket, everything is chill, and life is totally normal. Because, well, your money has a stable, reliable value. You stroll over to the bakery aisle, grab a fresh loaf of bread, and check the price tag. $2. Perfect, right? Normally, a loaf of bread costs a couple of dollars. You know this, the baker knows this, and your money just does what it's supposed to do. It holds its value.
But hold on a second. Right before your eyes, that price tag flickers. That $2, it just jumped to $50. Out of nowhere, panic starts bubbling up. You blink, but there it is. The ink is practically drying on this massive new number.
And wait, it doesn't even stop there. The numbers start spinning like a broken slot machine. 50 becomes 100, then 1,000, then $10,000. For the exact same loaf of bread, within a matter of seconds, this basic everyday item becomes completely, impossibly expensive. Oh, look at that, price update again. Before our poor stickman can even sprint to the cash register to pay, it changes again. The cash in his pocket is literally losing its purchasing power by the second. This is complete and utter economic chaos. So, what's actually happening here? Well, this disaster officially has a name, and it's called hyperinflation. Back in 1956, an economist named Philip Coggan defined it like this. An economy enters hyperinflation when the prices of goods and services rise by more than 50% in a single month. Basically, it's that terrifying moment when money rapidly and violently loses its value entirely. Now, you're probably wondering, how on earth does something like this even happen? Well, it almost always leads back to what we playfully call the money printer problem. This right here is the root cause of the whole mess. Typically, it kicks off when a government spends way more than it actually earns. They run a massive fiscal deficit. So, desperate to pay their bills, they basically tell the central bank to just fire up the printers and create unbacked currency to cover those debts. Suddenly, you have a massive amount of cash sloshing around that completely outstrips any actual economic growth or production of real goods. And that is exactly when you get a total systemic meltdown. Economy.exe has stopped working. See, when there's suddenly way too much cash chasing the exact same amount of stuff, prices absolutely skyrocket. And it creates this vicious, unstoppable feedback loop. The government's money buys less, so they just print even more of it, which makes prices rise even faster. The currency just becomes fundamentally broken. Naturally, this triggers a total cascade of human panic. Step 1, people completely lose trust in their money. Step 2, because they know that cash will be worth even less tomorrow, they rush out to hoard durable goods. I mean, we're talking about people literally buying washing machines today just to get rid of their cash. And step 3, all this frantic hoarding causes massive scarcity, which, you guessed it, drives prices up even further. The visceral impact this has on regular, everyday people is just devastating. Imagine working your entire life, carefully saving up a nice little nest egg for retirement. In a hyperinflationary spiral, those savings mathematically evaporate into thin air. The elderly or anyone on a fixed income become exceptionally vulnerable because the cash they saved for decades suddenly can't even buy a single cup of coffee. The fallout reaches a level of absolute absurdity. Historically speaking, people have actually had to use literal wheelbarrows to carry enough cash just to buy basic groceries. It gets so bad that the paper the money is printed on becomes more valuable than the denomination itself. People have literally burned banknotes in their fireplaces to stay warm because it was actually cheaper than buying firewood. Meanwhile, lenders and banks just run out of cash and go completely bankrupt. Now, this isn't just some wild thought experiment for our stickman. Believe it or not, this exact nightmare scenario has actually happened multiple times over the last century. Take a look at these numbers. In Germany's Weimar Republic back in 1923, inflation hit 20.9% per day. Prices were literally doubling every few days. Over in Venezuela, the rate hit an astounding 13,000% per year in 2018 as their economy collapsed. But check out Zimbabwe in 2008. Inflation there hit nearly 80 billion% per month. I mean, seriously, a loaf of bread now costs what? It is almost impossible for the human brain to even comprehend numbers on that kind of scale. The prices just turn into a complete blur of zeros. Our stickman is totally overwhelmed, and quite frankly, so are the cash registers. To try and deal with this absolute insanity, the government of Zimbabwe literally printed a $100 trillion banknote. Go ahead, try and count the zeros on that one. $100 trillion. And you know what the saddest part is? At the absolute height of the crisis, that single slip of paper couldn't even pay for a simple bus fare. Okay, let's take a collective breath here and look at the path forward. How does a country actually fix a fundamentally broken economy once it goes this far off the rails? Like, how do you even begin to restore stability?
Well, the fixes have to be drastic. First things first, you absolutely have to unplug the money printer and stop spending money you simply don't have. Major economic and fiscal reforms are a must. Second, you might have to issue a completely new currency that's backed by something physical like gold or tied to a foreign money. Or third, you have to go to extremes and do what's called dollarizing. This means completely abandoning your local money and officially using a foreign currency, like the US dollar, just to force some stability back into the system.
Because at the end of the day, money isn't just paper or numbers on a screen. It is a fragile illusion built entirely on trust. When that trust evaporates, the whole system collapses. So the next time you go out and buy a loaf of bread, take a second to appreciate the invisible trust that makes that transaction possible. But with governments worldwide still running massive deficits and printing trillions today, you really have to ask yourself, is your money truly safe or is the printer just warming up? Thanks for joining me for today's Explainer. I'll catch you next time.